Welcome to our explainer. Today, we're digging into something that has a massive, and I mean massive, impact on patients fighting advanced gastric cancer. It's a silent threat, a hidden condition. We're going to look at the research that finally pulls back the curtain on how it works, and more importantly, how we can actually find it. You know, when we think about someone battling cancer, our minds immediately jump to the tumor, right? We focus on shrinking it, removing it, stopping it. But what if one of the biggest factors in whether a patient survives or not was something else entirely? Something happening quietly, behind the scenes? I mean, what if there was a condition, one you can't even see just by looking at a person, that was just draining them of their strength, making it harder and harder to handle treatment and fight back? Well, that's exactly what we're talking about today. So let's get right into it. Okay, Section 1, a hidden danger. First, we need to really understand the battlefields here, because there's a danger lurking that most people never even see. The truth is, for patients with advanced gastric cancer, the fight is incredibly uphill. The prognosis is grim. I mean, data from databases like Surfcan shows that 5-year survival rates are often less than 10%. The cancer itself makes it hard for the body to get nutrients, which leads to this state of severe malnutrition that just complicates everything. And here's the number that should really make you stop and think. Depending on how you measure it, studies show that somewhere between 55 and as high as 75% of these patients are hit with a very specific kind of malnutrition. We're not just talking about losing a few pounds here. This is a huge, often overlooked piece of the puzzle. And that condition has a name. It's called sarcopenia. Now, this is so much more than just losing weight. This is the targeted destruction of your skeletal muscle, the engine that gives your body strength and resilience. It's a key part of what's called cancer cachexia, where the body literally starts eating its own muscle to survive. And this is where it gets really tricky and why it's so dangerous. Look, typical weight loss, you see it on the scale, but sarcopenia, it's insidious. A patient can actually be overweight, their BMI can look totally normal, but underneath, their muscle is just wasting away. It's a completely invisible crisis of strength. So if this thing is invisible, how in the world are doctors supposed to find it? Well, in this next section, we're going to look at the tools that let them do just that, to see the invisible. So a full nutritional checkup isn't just one thing, it's a process. Of course, it starts with talking to the patient, asking about their diet, their appetite, their symptoms. But to really spot sarcopenia, you've got to go deeper, using objective measures that look at both the body's physical makeup and its internal chemistry. Now, one of the coolest tools they have is actually something patients are often already getting anyway, a CT scan. By looking at a very specific slice of that scan, right at the third lumbar vertebra, doctors can calculate something called the Skeletal Muscle Index, or SMI. This gives them a hard number, a precise measurement of a patient's muscle reserves. It's like getting a physical snapshot of their real internal strength. The other key tool is called the Prognostic Nutritional Index, or PNI. And this one comes from simple, routine blood work. It looks at two things: albumin, which shows your nutritional status, and lymphocytes, which are a sign of your immune system strength. So it doesn't measure muscle directly, but it gives you a score for your body's overall defense system. Think of it as a readiness score. How ready is the body to put up a fight? Okay, so we have the tools to see this invisible enemy. What happens when we actually use them? Well, this is where things get really, really serious. So let's get to the proof. A lot of this comes from a major study out of Thailand that looked back at the records of 238 patients with advanced gastric cancer. The researchers used both of those tools we just talked about, the SMI from CT scans and the PNI from blood tests, to see if there was a link to how long patients survived. All right, now don't let the table scare you. Let's just break this down. This is all about survival. Anything with a hazard ratio over 1 means a higher risk of death. Now, just look at the numbers for sarcopenia and for poor nutrition based on that PNI score. They are both statistically significant. That means this isn't a fluke. These are powerful, independent predictors of a patient's survival. So what does a number like 1.58 really mean for a person? It's devastating. It means that patients who had sarcopenia had a 58% higher risk of death compared to patients who didn't. Let that sink in. 58%. That is a massive difference. And it's basically the same story with the PNI. Patients with low scores, meaning poor nutrition and a weaker immune system, had a 53% higher risk of death. So you have these two simple measures, one from a scan, one from a blood test, and they both point to this profound, terrifying gap in survival. Okay, those numbers they're really tough to hear. But the whole play of this research isn't just to predict a bad outcome. It's to find a window, an opportunity to get in there and change it. And this, right here, is the most important part of this whole story. Finding sarcopenia or seeing a low PNI score, it's not a death sentence. It's not the end. It's a signal. It's a big flashing red light that tells doctors we need to act right now before the patient gets too weak to even tolerate their cancer treatment. So let's just quickly wrap up the big takeaways here. First, sarcopenia is incredibly common, it's silent, and it is absolutely deadly for these patients. But, and this is a huge but, we can unmask it. We can find it using tools we already have like CT scans and blood tests. Finding it early opens up this critical window where we can actually do something, like providing targeted nutritional care to help keep patients strong enough for their fight. This is something that could and should be a standard part of cancer care. And that really leaves us with one final, urgent question. We now have the ability to see this invisible threat. The science has made it visible. So the challenge for all of us is how do we make sure that every single patient gets the chance to fight it? Not just the tumor, but also the silent enemy that's stealing their strength from within.